Well, hello again. Today is the day I'm going to do my monologue. When I introduced Boldly Feminine to you, I said that I would be doing sort of like a sequence that I hoped you guys could begin to identify. So one was my introduction, two was Jane Elliott, which was my guest. Then I wanted to do something that was art, which was fashion with Cameron. Then I wanted to have my Native American Indigenous guest, and that was Tabori. And so today I am going to be talking about something near and dear to me, which is a big part of my daily life and routine, and that I want to share with you. So if you follow me on social media, you've seen a lot of things that I've posted ad hoc as things come up during the day. But from that, you won't really be able to tell what I do on a day-to-day basis. And one of the things, in the sequence of things, self-care is what I'm going to be talking about today. And self-care for me has a lot of layers to it. One is the way I compose myself. So to me, fashion is self-expression and it's self-care. For me, going to the tailor or to the alterations is therapy. It gives me a way to detach from other things that are going on and focus on something that brings me pleasure. Fashion for me is also self-expression. So from a childhood or formation where there were expectations of how you should look, to me, fashion became a way of being me and me, myself, and I. That's why I advocate it so much in my conversations. There's another aspect of self-care, which is nutrition. It's always been a big thing. Eating healthily, eating clean foods. I don't abuse any substances. And from that, I'm going to dive into how do addictions and self-abuse begin. And I think we've all been there and done that. So when we talk about the universal and the particular, the micro and the macro, all those are sort of metaphors for why I'm putting myself out there today. My experience in my life with my family, my social dynamics, I think is a reflection of what a lot of people deal with. So I think it's important for us to be open with each other, and that it's through our community sharing and family being open with each other and hopefully becoming more accepting and realistic about our issues, because there is no perfect family. We all come from dysfunctional families. We all have levels of abuse. Some people die from that, that's the consequence. Some people survive it, but with huge damage. And I think that's why self-care is so important, because it isn't what life throws at you that means you're the victim. It's what life throws at you and what do you do with it. So do you make lemons out of lemonade is one metaphor. But do you also learn how to take care of yourself? Because at the end of the day, you are the only person that can do that. You can get therapy, you can get help. Some of that can be atrocious. I was in a very bad, toxic relationship that was really ripping my soul from me when I was pretty young. And so I think on the positive side of that is that you learn, or else you self-destruct. So when I talk about self-care, I'm talking about the outside factors, going to a therapist, somebody who can give you guidance and tools to take care of your mental well-being. But there are so many tools that we have now at our disposal that we can implement every single day, we can learn from a lot of very well taught experts that I've found even on social media. At the end of the podcast, I'm going to give you a list and links to those people that I have found very helpful. I'll tell you off the bat that one is the holistic psychologist. That is, again, about learning the tools and implementing it. Another one is Dr. Carolyn Leaf. She's a neuroscientist. There is a function to our distress that's embedded in our body, and our body is also our brain. The brain is controlled by the mind. If the mind can, our brain is neuroplastic, that means it can be changed. It gets damaged just like your body gets a bruised from trauma, but there are exercises you can do to rehabilitate it. So that's the neuroplastic side of it. There are informational websites and personalities like Dr. Romani. She's an expert on narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. If you understand or have heard that our traumas are also inherited, this is crucial to our healing and self-help, because you're born at the get-go with issues that you have to deal with for the rest of your life. And so to learn the mechanisms of these personality functions and how you can counteract them is a big part of being healthy. So when we talk about reality theft, if you've heard the term reality theft, if you've heard the term gaslighting, they're pretty close. There's a fine line in between them. Gaslighting is when somebody hurts you, assaults you, dumps you, betrays you, and they blame it on you. It's your fault. You invited it. You asked for it. You're the problem. It's your behavior. It's your personality. You deserve it. Not true. This is a form of abuse. It is a large part of how dysfunctional family systems and dysfunctional relationships work, is not to have accountability and not to have to do the work for themselves, and so the other person is given the responsibility. When you do the work to heal your mind and your brain, the mind exercises the brain so that the brain can heal, so that the brain then functions better and processes the information and the traumas differently. It's one of the keys to that is to learn to become discerning. So if there's reality theft or there's gaslighting where your reality is being questioned or destroyed intentionally, it's through your own strength that you're rebuilding that you can counteract that. Step back and say, I'm not taking ownership of that. I'm detaching. I'm going to take care of myself, but this is my reality is not what you're describing. So invalidation is another degree of reality theft and gaslighting. Somebody slaps you, somebody hits you, somebody steals from you, somebody takes advantage of you in a business deal or in a relationship. They're like, well, isn't that bad? You know, how much does a slap hurt? Or how bad did that deal go? You know, or, you know, it's minimized. That's invalidation. Invalidation is that they don't accept your reality and your reality is extinguished. That's another form of abuse. So narcissistic abuse follows all of those behaviors. That is a choice, and it's about control, and it's also constant if you're in a bad relationship, which is those relationships that I described when I was younger, where it's literally sucking all of the energy you have in you to survive it, because it is like a parasite to the host. You're the host. And like, this can be a relationship that's romantic. It can be a relationship that's in the workplace. It can be your boss. It can be a coworker. My God, I've had those too. It can be parental. I think you've all seen that cliche or experienced it in a friend or family member, or maybe yourself, where the parent sees the child as a reflection of themselves and as their go-to to sustain themselves. So the way the child looks, the way the child behaves, what the child has, their achievements, it can go both ways. Either you are the golden child and you're elevated and you're the trophy to the family or to the parent. And so the pressure to constantly perform and be the best in order to have love, in parentheses, is pretty destructive. On the other side, you have the child that's the scapegoat, who is never good enough, who is always seen as the problem, who is the dumping ground for the family's toxic dysfunction. And so they are always targeted so that nobody else has to deal with any of the issues that they're creating or supporting. So we have invalidation on that level. Two is other people who endorse and support the dysfunction because it makes their life easier superficially to be part of it than to be on the outside fighting back. I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. There's going to be a lot of show notes on this post. It's going to be ongoing because I'm giving you kind of like the cliff notes to stuff that it's taken me my lifetime to work through. So I hope it's coherent, and let me continue. So when there's a term that they've been using for maybe more colloquially for 4 or 5 years now called epigenetic trauma or epigenetics. So we know what genetics are. It's the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, your height, characteristics you have. They've done so many studies where they separate twins at birth. They never see each other again. They're reunited when they're 80s, and they're wearing the same kind of watch on the same wrist, married to somebody with the same name. Their living rooms are even, distributed the same way. I mean, absolutely insane parallels that prove that genetics trump nurturing, as hard as we try. But then we also have the part of epigenetics that are controllable, because now we know through studies of the neurons in your mind and brain, the neurons in your brain, the neurological makeup of your brain, how you can use your mind to reconfigure things that have been entrapped before for generations. We are at the forefront. This is science fiction a generation ago, to know that we can actually rebuild our mental health, rebuild our physiological health, that is the organ that's traumatized, and create a completely new future for ourselves as what was predestined for others. It's pretty conflictive at this point, because the traditional family systems, which are pretty much all of them, have been embedded for generations after generations after generations, for thousands of years, literally, with patterns that we are now trying to break. At the forefront in mental health are those that are now understanding the consequences of toxic and abusive family systems that they're now trying to break out of. So I think it was Denzel Washington, he's like, be brave, put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants, because man, it's tough to be the one that's at the forefront of this when everybody else is staying with what's familiar. And there's a reason for that also. Our brain is wired to go to what's familiar, even if it's bad for you. It's familiar, and so it feels somewhat cozy. If you've lived in a dysfunctional and broken family system from the day you were born, and the generation before that, and the generation before that, the chances are you're going to go towards a toxic relationship yourself at the youngest age, because that's what you know. Epigenetically, it's what you know, and in your family dynamics, it's what you know. So to break free of that is just, it's really heroic. We've also judged self-abuse, which is addictions, which is alcoholism, which is eating disorders, shopping disorders, sex addictions. All of those have been very judged as well. They're just a messed up person. That family has messed up people. It's very judgmental, and making the person dealing with those issues impotent, because what they were doing is denying them their reality, which is their brain is trying to function as best it can with the traumas it's had. And so when you look at addictions in that way, and behavioral dependencies in that way, it makes sense. And what it takes to break them is compassion. Just compassion and understanding and love, to say to that person, what you really need is nourishing. You need calm, you need constancy, you need fairness and consideration in the way people treat you. And if that's not in the dynamics of how family systems have been functioning, it's literally removing yourself almost into a place of solitude where you can regroup, see it. What I've done for myself as a mental exercise is Bruce Lee, believe it or not. I will mentally envision Bruce Lee and like that Zen, absolute heroic self-control that you can like take your hand and break a block of concrete. So that is the amount of a power we have when we harness our brain and our mind to serve us rather than to be broken by the conflict outside. That's going to go use some of my notes because there's a lot to cover here. What else? So I'm gonna start giving you the tools now. So now I kind of gave you the outline of what are the things that are dysfunctional and broken. Now I'm going to give you the tools that I use to take care of myself. Big one is to get outside every day. I personally need physical vitamin D, not just in a tablet. So I always make sure I walk to the market. I walk, like I'll park at the farthest end of a parking lot, walk to the building I have to go to. If I have to go to a meeting, I'll park in a parking lot that's actually far away from the meeting so that I have to walk there. Those sort of things that are built into my daily routine. If there's a flight of stairs up to the 4th, 5th floor, I always take the stairs. What else? I do physical weights every day. The body cannot function without the direction of the brain. So this is another way of making your brain stronger because the mind controls the brain. So when your body is forced to pick up a weight, forced to do a sprint, forced to step up to a step that's higher than what's comfortable, you are forcing your brain to work harder. Actually, if you look at people that are older with Alzheimer's, they'll stop even eating hard foods. That's harder work than eating soft foods. So everything takes exercise, and it's that awareness of building into your life that is going to give you that edge as you age, and just to get stronger to overcome adversity. So the first thing is to at first, when I started doing therapy, I would say, okay, people that don't do well in therapy, and that seems to be like that New York cliche of being on the couch for like 40 years of their life and sort of just going back to the same therapist and ruminating about the same stuff that's happened to him, like a, Woody Allen character. I think part of the reason that happens so frequently is because the trauma is so profound that people stay in the same rut because they cannot deal with what's actually hurt their mind and their body. They just can't deal with it, and so they stay in this plateau. And so I saw that as a weakness. I would judge that when I was younger as a weakness. It isn't a weakness. It's just your survival skill. That's what's helping you survive on a day-to-day basis. When you start to think about and reflect and choose about what's going on, that's when you start to have agency. That's when you can start to create real change. So it takes reflection, it takes time, and you cannot do that if you're busy all the time. You have to have 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day to just regroup, focus on stuff. And I found that journaling is very, very important. So I would find I'm a creative person, so I'm very visual, and that's how you were identified when you're in university. But that little idiosyncrasy you have is something everybody can learn. So if I took a note card and I would write on it with a different color or in a different way of writing so that I could imprint that in my mind to write an exam, that's the same way you take notes to remind yourself about the issues you're dealing with. So I would do note cards as I was learning to do neurocycling is what we call it. This is Dr. Carolyn Leaf, I think she's been doing neuroscience for almost 40 years. She's from South Africa, Leaf, L-E-A-F. And she developed this method, which any of us can use. There's an app that I have on my phone. You do it for 15 minutes a day. You think, feel, choose. You do breathing exercises. The breathing exercises push chemicals into the brain so that they can rebuild the neurotransmitters that have been damaged. If you think of the wiring in your brain like a tree branch, when it's healthy, it's leafy and green, and when it's damaged, it looks like it's being torched by an electrical storm, basically. So at first, when I was younger, we thought, oh, if your brain is damaged, it's damaged. You did drugs, you damaged it. You did too much alcohol, you damaged it. You had too many concussions, you damaged it. You were physically abused, there was damage. And we all assumed this was irreversible. You had Alzheimer's, and reversible. There is so much proof now of how much agency we have to rebuild our health. And you will see, like I can tell you from my own perspective, when you do the neuroscience work and you do the neurocycling, which is thinking through that process of what am I dealing with, identifying it, doing breathing exercises every day to push the chemicals into your brain to rebuild that organ that's being affected so that your mind then can function better. Journaling so that we all have creativity. We all do. That just gives you another way to express it. So the way you write your notes, they're bubbles you create that identify what the patterns are. That's called a metacog. I'm giving you, again, super quick notes. We're gonna go over this again. You can go into my links in the show notes. But a metacog is giving you a diagram that your brain can retrieve easily about what you're going through and what you're dealing with and how you identify it. At the end of the day, we're creating pattern identification. It's all down to patterns, the pattern of what we've inherited, the pattern of how we're dealing with what we inherited, the pattern of what we're repeating in our behaviors, the pattern of what we accept in relationships, and the patterns we are breaking that are not helpful and dysfunctional to our health. So another way to override the negativity or toxicity or daily garbage you're going to comfort yourself with. So I talked about neurocycling, healthy food. Your brain is an organ. Would you give your dog cardboard to eat? No. Your brain doesn't survive on cardboard either. You need good, nutritious food, leafy green vegetables, basic, healthy greens and proteins. I'm mostly eat legumes. I do not eat animal proteins very often. Meat at all for I don't know, since I was a kid almost. So that to me is much better for the way my body functions and absorbs nutrients. Walking outside, fresh air, sunshine, stretching. When you stretch your hands overhead, stretch your arms out, stretch down to touch your toes. Breathe while you're doing it. It'll trigger a yawn response. And that yawn response is when you can release and go back to your original position and do it again. That is, again, pushing chemicals into the brain to help it rehabilitate. The journaling, the metacogs, nature is extremely important. We know that green space, that's why we're building green walls into buildings now, having a plant in your house, having a plant in your room. We are wired to be connected to nature, and it's really, really toxic to our well-being to detach from that. So that's very important to your well-being. Water, a lot of water. Our body is made up of water to process all this and for this energy to sleep I used to think I was heroic because I didn't need very much sleep. I was like, hey, I only need 5 hours. I need 6 hours at the most. This has been all of my life. Not so much, because our brain has to regenerate. And my mind is able to function as well as my brain is healthy. So there are certain chemicals that flood my brain when I'm in deep REM sleep that I am denying it if I have short sleep patterns. So sleep is really, really important. I've fully embraced that now. I found magnesium. There are 5 kinds of magnesium in a well-balanced magnesium supplement. Do not get the bad ones. Do not get the cheap ones. 5 types of magnesium. Take that supplement. 2 tablets a day will do wonders for your ability to relax and sleep well. When I talk about nature, I love quotations because they give you sort of like a little identifier in a few words to help you sort of reflect on something you kind of know. And to know the divine, which we are divine, we're spirit. We're spirit in a body. This is our house. That's why I'm encouraging you, as I've learned to do, to take care of the house better. I think it's a part of our self-betrayal when we don't take care of the house we live in well. And it's a huge accomplishment to overcome that and learn that it isn't self-importance, and it isn't being conceited, and it isn't all these negative characteristics that we've been probably taught from childhood to take care of yourself. It is necessary, because you can't take care of anything else unless you are functioning well. And it's not easy. It's a look, I've given you a big list today, and it took me years to figure out my list, which I think is a really good list. That's why I'm hoping you'll listen and take it with care and consideration. It's my gift from assimilating a lot of information from a lot of different sources, and that is something that is, I think, redacted down to a pretty good functional list. Repressing what's painful also becomes confusing, and the way to deal with the confusion is to bury it. So you bury it with, like I said, we're talking about addictions, but it can also be, watching the same movie on repeat, Sudoku. I don't know. I've actually taken a personality test from this lab that supposedly has the ultimate test, and it's pages. It's like doing a really long seated exam, and at the end they give you all the results, and the results are a measure of from different questions you've answered, such as so anyway, I asked the therapist, I said at the end, what does that score mean? And he's like, well, this score in particular means if you were a boxer and you got knocked down, you would get up. And if you got knocked down again, you would get up. And if you got knocked down again, you would get up. And you would keep trying to get up until you were pretty much dead. And when he analyzed it for me like that, I could see myself so clearly. So what do you call that? Resilience? Do you call that determination? Do you call that genetics? Whatever it is, that is just the way I'm wired. Can I rebuild it and enhance it and focus on it? Probably, it's probably why I like boxing as an exercise. But, this is going back thousands of years to know yourself. You cannot move forward unless you take that first step of thinking, reflecting, and choosing to truly look inside at what is most destructive and what's helping you, and build upon what's helping you, and start to address what's destructive with countermeasures, which are the list I gave you of exercise, journaling, all of that needs to be done. And does that mean I'm going to live to be 90 or 100? Probably not. But even if I live another 5 years or a year or a day, at least I've learned to do it in a more functional way. I think that's self-love. Self-care is self-love, and that's the journey that most of us find most challenging, because we, for the most part, I think when I see so many people in so much pain, and what is affecting them most, it's because they feel unlovable. And feeling unlovable comes from those first days or moments, or sometimes even within the womb, where the people around us didn't have the capacity to take care of us and for all our needs to be met. And so that's the gift of self-care and self-love. You get to, as an adult, now choose things to reparent yourself and be there for yourself in a way nobody could be before. And that's when you can say, no, I'm not lonely. I'm choosing to be alone. And I'm choosing to be alone because this is the space and time I need for me to get better or to heal or to just do things I love. I think especially in traditional family systems, and especially for me being female, a lot of it was indoctrinated in that you have no right to take care of yourself. You have no right to be autonomous. You're conditioned to be part of a system where you're constantly the caretaker till death. You become the caretaker, sometimes by bad parenting, of your own parents. Sometimes you are conditioned to be the caretaker of children, of a spouse, of a partner, of failing siblings, of failing parents. But as a female, society has functioned by having free labor caretakers. That was a massive injustice that we're now finally fighting back against, because we are half of the world and we are half of society, and we have a right to take care of ourselves, not just be taking care of others. So that's going to be the tail end of this. This is my first monologue on self-care. There will be more. There's going to be a lot of notes and a lot of reading material. And I think that this is also the foundation to a healthier society and an egalitarian society, because we all need care. And I'm including all of my family and friends, and I've met so many people along the way on this journey of building my brand and my company and finding myself through it, that I think that's one of the biggest gift, is to be able to see the macro in the macro and to then drive it down to the micro, which is me here with you today. Thanks. And I just wanted to add, what you see is all me. So when I talk about fashion, and today's particularly, the dress is my design, the jewelry is my design. They're all one-of-a-kind pieces. It's kind of like going to the Real or to any resale site. If it fits you, that's great. And if it doesn't, maybe we can alter it. But you are getting something that nobody else has if you want to purchase what you see on me when I'm doing the podcast. You can also go to the website, maliacollection.com, boldlyfeminine.com. They are not assorted the same. Malia Collection is all jewelry with some home accessories. And Boldly Feminine, I'm giving you an awesome assortment of things that I just love. Some of them are my creations, and some of them are just companies and things that I like. Like there's a company that does incredible library books that recovered in patent leather, like real leather covers that are just gorgeous to have as your home decor. And I love that they're repurposing library books, and I love that they're repurposing. So that's one. If you've seen me on Instagram at home, sometimes I have my own teacup that I'm drinking from. I love skulls. Skulls are a memento mori. It means a reminder that our time here is temporary. It is not macabre. Yes, I know Halloween is a couple of days away, but it's something I use all the time. They're really beautiful, and they're fine moon china. Those are also on Boldly Feminine. Some of my sterling pieces, I don't really have a silver collection of jewelry anymore. It's much more affordable than my gold. Some of those pieces are available on Boldly Feminine. So take a look at the websites, and also because they're very thoughtful. I think Boldly Feminine is very thoughtful access to my brand and to me through objects that are probably going to resonate if you like what I'm talking about, what my brand and I am about. So thanks again.